Joining us now here on set for his first interview since tonight's verdict was announced is the prosecution's primary witness from this case, Michael Cohen. He's joined here tonight by his attorney, Danya Perry. We're grateful to you both for being here.
It's good to see you all.
How are you?
I guess the word is relieved. This has been 6 years in the making. Remember, the very first time that I met with the district attorney's office, we talked about it when I was on your show after putting out Disloyal. The very first time I ever met with the district attorney's office was while I was an inmate in Otisville. They came up to see me on 3 separate occasions. So this is a 6-year process within which for accountability to finally be had.
Were you surprised by the verdict?
No, I was not. I've been on so many of the shows on here on MSNBC, and I've told you all along that the facts speak for themselves. The documents speak for themselves. I've listened to so many pundits come on the various shows, including some of the hosts talking about X, Y, and Z. They couldn't be further from the truth. And I would have conversation with my lawyer, Danya, on a regular basis. And I would say, I don't understand it. I just don't understand. How come they don't see the same things that we're seeing? I understand that, it makes great headlines and so on, but the facts are the facts. And at the end of the day, the facts are what prevailed here.
You mentioned the time frame and what it's been for you. Before tonight, there was this criminal scheme that had been described by prosecutors, right? This illegal conspiracy to influence the election, payments to benefit the campaign, laundered through the Trump organization, booked falsely as funds for something else. It's been described by multiple prosecutors. But before tonight, there was exactly one person who had gotten in trouble for this scheme.
Only one.
Only one. It was you. You were not the beneficiary of the scheme, but you were the only person who had been in trouble for it. I mean, the National Enquirer got immunity, but you ended up in prison.
As did Alan Weisselberg.
Yeah. Trump's Attorney General, Bill Barr, told SDNY to stop the investigation after you were in prison, after you had gotten the sharp end of that stick, and to get Trump's name out of it. It's finally been 8 years down the road from these alleged crimes. I just have to ask you, I know you just said about how you feel about the verdict, but that's justice delayed. Is justice delayed, justice denied?
Clearly not in this case. 34 counts, one after the other, after the other, after the other of guilty. It's accountability. It's exactly what America needs right now. We need for accountability to be had by all those that break the law, because as we like to continuously state, no one is above the law. And today's verdict demonstrates that.
How do you think Donald Trump is feeling today in the wake of these verdicts?
Well, I can only go back to when Judge Pauley sentenced me to 36 months. You don't feel good. Sentencing is terrible. I, of course, took the plea, the 48 hours that was given to me, or they were filing the 80-page indictment that was going to include my wife. It never feels good. I did what I had to do to protect my family. This is very different. Donald didn't let it go in order to protect his family. He took it all the way. And Judge Juan Merchan, who is an absolute gentleman, to see him on that stand is to see poetry. It's to see a masterful judge who was quick with decision making. He was absolutely judicial perfection. And the jury had tremendous respect for him, as did I, which is what kept me off of all my social media. That and Danya, of course, telling me to stay off of social media. It was really out of respect for Judge Merchan in the process that I did exactly that. And the jury respects Judge Merchan, and I believe a lot of the antics that went on in the courtroom, whether it was by Blanche or by Donald himself with the eye closing, the leaning back, the total disregard for the jury, I don't think he engendered any positive feelings by anyone.
Did you feel like him? I mean, some people said he was sleeping. Some people said he was resting his eyes. I don't know. There was a lot of different interpretations about what he was doing. Your interpretation of it in the room was that he was being disrespectful to the jury?
Yes, but I was also not concentrating too much on him as I was trying to keep track of Todd Blanche's meandering questioning. That was very different. It would go from 2016 to 2018, 2019, 2020, and trying to keep track of the dates and the events when you have that type of a meandering questioner is not an easy process.
Did you, and Daniel, I'll put this to you as well, in preparing for that cross-examination from Todd Blanche, did you prepare emotionally as well as factually? It seemed like from us just watching it, being in the courtroom and from our reporters and looking at the transcript, it seemed like it was a Herculean effort to just stay calm and even keel in what seemed to be designed to provoke you and to confuse you.
A lot of our prep certainly focused on the facts, making sure, there was so much prior testimony and interviews and statements. So we wanted to be up to speed on that, refreshed.
That's not an advantage when your client has spoken a lot in public.
He has. But it was important, and I emphasize this to Michael, and he handled himself remarkably well. But I wanted him to understand that his demeanor mattered and that he needed to maintain the same type of affect and composure on direct as on cross, as on redirect and on recross. And he did that. And I think I saw a connection between him and the jury. They believed him, and I think they were just with him. And so it was, yes, there was a lot of emotion involved. Painful for me as his lawyer to watch the attacks on him, the constant, 85 times he was called a liar in the summation by Todd. He's not a liar. Nobody's a liar. No one's a truth teller. He has told lies, and he admitted to it. And the jury believed him, and they returned the swift and just verdict. And so I think all the preparation was put to good use.
What Dania's describing there about the strategic necessity of you staying cool and having that same affect and everything, how hard was it?
Not hard at all. It's the media that wants to portray me as this sort of bombastic character. It's really not my nature.
We've all heard bombast from you.
But you've heard it from my Mea Culpa podcast or Political Beatdown podcast. It's a persona for it. Now, I can't go with intelligence, so I have to go with bombastic, right? It's not necessarily my effect. Yes, I get hot-tempered. Yes, you've heard that a couple of times, here and there when I was working for Mr. Trump. But that's not generally my effect. And it really wasn't hard. I will tell you, though, 51 days of solitary confinement changes anyone and everyone. When you start to learn to live in your own head, which is a dangerous place for anyone, it's very easy to then turn around and say, I just need to pull back on myself. I need to pull back on getting angry at the nonsense of a Todd Blanche. And it was not as difficult as I thought. Staying focused with his questioning, that was more difficult. The anxiety and dealing with the anxiety on this was difficult as well.
What kind of anxiety?
I'm nervous. I was nervous because so much was riding on the result of this. And I wanted to ensure that my testimony was perfect. I knew that there could be no deviation from perfection. And both Danya and I afterwards, when the whole thing was over, we sat and we spoke for a little bit about my testimony. And couldn't understand some of the criticisms. Oh, a minute and 39 seconds. How could you possibly have two conversations? Well, you can, especially when one is not a status call. It's just an update. Hey, just want to let you know everything's taken care of. We're good. That's the conversations that take place with Donald Trump, not this long-winded, including that tape that I had recorded him, which I had done, as I had told you, for David Pecker. That was only like a minute and change. So, but that was a substantive conversation. So imagine what you could do in a minute and 39. And I thought Josh Steinglass did a fabulous job by putting that minute 39 seconds out there. Susan Offinger is just a phenomenal. The whole team The whole team, the whole prosecutorial team were incredible. As we would go through some of the documents, she knew off the top of her head most of the numbers, most of the exhibit numbers. A very impressive group of people.
What did you make of the decision by the defense? And we're all speculating that a lot of the defense strategy was driven by Trump himself. We are speculating about that because we don't know, but it just kind of felt like it. But they made a strategic decision to try to make the verdict a referendum on you, including saying and being admonished by the judge for saying at essentially the last word to the jury, do not send anyone to prison on the word of Michael Cohen. How was that for you? What do you make of that decision?
Again, I didn't really care, nor do I really care what Todd Blanche says about me. What I care about is my wife, my daughter, my son, my parents, my close friends. That's who I care about and what they say about me. Danya, I care about what she says about me. I don't care what Todd Blanche says. It means nothing to me. I don't care what Don, Ivanka, Eric, Don Jr., it doesn't matter to me what any of them say about me. I know who I am, and I knew what I needed to do. So in this specific case, it was a very, and I had said it, it was a very foolish strategy. And he's not really known as a defense attorney. I think it's only his second defense trial. Not a good strategy, and proof positive of that is the 34-count verdict.
The defense counsel we're talking about, Todd Blanche, did an interview on another cable news network this evening. I'll let you guess which one. And he said in that interview that every decision in the case, every substantive decision in the case is one that he made together with Trump.
Makes sense.
Well, I was going to ask you if you see Trump's fingerprints on some of the decisions that you're describing here.
Absolutely. The term gloat, it's a Donald Trump fourth grade playground bullying type of
have a name
tactic.
For Todd?
What's that?
Did you have an acronym for Todd?
I did. I was going to call him a sloat, which is the stupidest lawyer of all time. You cannot listen. You cannot listen to your client when you are trying to create a defense that is as important as this one is. The very first president of the United States, former president, to ever be charged with a crime, let alone convicted now on 34 counts. It was definitively the stupidest lawyer of all time. Worse than some of the other ones that he has, in his orbit. It just made no sense at all. And any good lawyer, if he would have tried to get a hold of Danya, she never would have listened to his desire for retribution or his desire to control how the case would proceed. That's not how you run a good defense. I would never have allowed it if I was still with him.
Let me ask you about an element of the defense that was mounted, which I think I found puzzling just as an observer, and it was about the Access Hollywood tape. The defense argued that there was no new urgency from Trump to kill the Stormy Daniels story after the Access Hollywood tape, because the Access Hollywood tape was no big deal, that it didn't have a big impact on the campaign, that it didn't change anybody's mindset about the relative potential damage that could be done by another sex scandal, particularly a sex scandal like this. And the reason that was, I think, puzzling to a lot of us watching it is because we were alive then, and it seemed like the Access Hollywood tape was a very big deal then, and it would have rationally had an impact in terms of the way they were thinking about the potential damage of one of these stories. You were very close to Donald Trump at the time. You were involved in the response to the Access Hollywood tape. How does that comport with your lived experience?
Completely contrary to the reality. I was in London at the time visiting my daughter, who was studying at Queen Mary University for the semester. It was her 21st birthday, not to mention several days thereafter was my anniversary. So we were there celebrating as a family when this thing happened. I spent most of the vacation outside of the restaurants on the telephone with people like Hope Hicks and others trying to do damage control. And that was demonstrated, again, by the evidence, whether it was text messages or, corroborating testimony. That's what I had continuously said when I was on like Nicole's show or Joy's show or any of the MSNBC shows. This is a case that is going to come down to the documentary evidence and the testimony of others. And what ultimately was demonstrated was the fact that all of the testimony by the other witnesses that I had involvement with corroborated what I've been saying for 6 years. And all of the evidence, the documentary evidence, emails, text messages, documents themselves, again, corroborated what I've been saying for 6 years.
This case was, I think, not derided, but downplayed by a lot of people when it became clear that it was one of 4 criminal indictments in 4 different jurisdictions for Trump. This was seen as, I think, the lightweight case.
Yeah.
There's also been, a lot of discussion even in the media. Do we call this the hush money case? Is this an election interference case? How should we shorthand this? Do you think that this case was substantively important, especially, compared with the classified documents case and the January 6th case and the other ones that are out there pending that may never come to trial? Is this one substantively important on its own?
So the answer is yes, it is. But I myself, on various different shows, have said, why are we looking at these cases like this is the Kentucky Derby, that we're handicapping the 4 cases?
Yeah.
If, in fact, this was a handicap, it would be the 4th most obscene case that Donald is being charged with. Obviously, this case does not hold equal weight to the theft of nuclear secrets, the Mar-a-Lago document case, or the insurrection, the January 6th insurrection. It just doesn't. Or even the attempt to overturn a free and fair election. Nevertheless, this is an important case. It is a legitimate case. And while I would have liked Alvin Bragg to have brought it a year earlier, because that would have been good for me, right? I would have been a year earlier finished with this. It's an important case. It's a relevant case. It is an illegal act that any one of us would have already been prosecuted for. And again, since no one is above the law, Donald needed to be held accountable, just like any of us, just like I was held accountable. The only difference, I took responsibility.
In terms of, I will say, my colleagues here, I'm being very uncool and not letting you guys in here. I've got another question I'm going to ask you, but then I will let you talk to Michael as well. A lot of the reason that I think this is being greeted the way that it is across the country, 3-inch headlines in every newspaper in the country. It's not necessarily because everybody is totally engaged with the substance of the falsifying the business record to occlude the commission of another crime, which is the actual details of this is not what's driving it. What's driving it is A, that he's the first president ever convicted of a crime, and B, what's he going to do? People are very worried about what Trump may demand or expect his supporters to do in response to this, the sort of extra legal pressure and potential violence that he brings to bear on every situation where he feels victimized now is very much front of mind in terms of us and the future of our democracy. I'd like to hear what you think about that, how you calibrate that, and how you have dealt with what I know has been the anxiety around the threat level for you and your family.
So I know that he's already asked a series of the Republicans that showed up to court with him to pass a law whereby he cannot be held legally accountable for any crime. I've never heard of anything like this. He has his own set of constitutional rights that none of us are afforded the same. This is going to be a whole new law class for all these poor law students right now. They're going to have to take another course. Maybe Don, you end up teaching it at Harvard or something. Will he look to create violence? Sure. Will it happen? I don't think so. I don't believe that the American people are as invested in him as he believes. We've already seen what happened with the Oath Keepers, with the Stewart Rhodes, 18 years. Nobody wants to spend 18. I spent 13 months at Otisville, a satellite camp, but 51 days in solitary confinement. I assure you Nobody wants that for themselves. So no one's going to go out there, and do something stupid, especially, let's say, here in New York. We have the greatest law enforcement in New York. Our men and women in blue, the best. But they're also great in all the other cities and all the other states in our country. Then we have the National Guard, we have the military. No one is going to allow him to create the havoc that he wants everybody to believe that he has the ability to create.